Wendy here at Morningside Nature Center, and today we're going to work on making a mobile. And we're going to use some materials that you can probably find in your backyard or maybe in one of your friends' backyards. We're not going to be doing any collecting out of any of the parks in town because the parks are actually protected against collecting. So let's look at some of the things that you can use for your mobile. So I have some grapevine here, and grapevines are found in a lot of different backyards. Right now they don't really have any leaves, but when they do have leaves, maybe you remember seeing these little heart-shaped leaves with teeth on the edges when they were green during the summertime and the fall. You can tell that they're grape leaf or grapevines now because when you look, they don't have any thorns on them, and they have kind of these little curlicues. And if you actually saw Mr. Justin's Piggy Craft, you might have even used some of these to do the tail on the pig. So we have this grapevine, and we can use this and shape it into a circle, which we'll go into a little bit. If you'd like to add a little bit of green to your vines, you can find some smilax vines, but I'll caution you with the smilax, they have thorns on them, so you can really get poked collecting these. But if you have on gloves, then it won't be a problem for you. We have some pine cones here. I've got different kinds of pine cones, different sizes. Longleaf pine cones. I got some loblollies, some slash. I also have some yarn. You can use twine, whatever you have around the house, and some scissors. Okay, so you have collected your grapevine. It helps to have hand pruners to be able to trim it up a bit. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to shape it into something that is kind of circle-ish. And as you're shaping it, you can go in and out to kind of intertwine the pieces so that they'll stay nicely together. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I don't know if I want this little piece hanging off there, so I'm going to clip that. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to figure out how you want to hang it. So what I did for mine was I got a pine cone and I attached some pieces of yarn around the base of it every quarter of the way around the base. So I'll show you that. You want to do the same length strings so it'll start out kind of even. And as you go, you can always trim along the way if you want it a little bit different. Alright, so I'm going to take one of those strings and I'm going to wrap it around the base of this pine cone. And I found a pine cone that kind of had some of the scales open at the bottom here, so it's just going to be easier for me to tie my string. First one is the easiest one because you can tie it anywhere you want. Now the next one, when you tie it, you want to go to the direct opposite of where this one's coming out. And you just have to kind of watch what you're doing, kind of adjust it, kind of wrap it this way. And this one's coming out this side, so you want this one to line up and come out directly opposite that. So that's how I'm going to line it up. And it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it's a little more fun if you don't worry about things being perfect. Just have a good time doing whatever it is that you're doing and change along the way to what feels good. Alright, so now I have two directly opposite each other. So now I'm going to tie the next one this way and then the last one on the back side here. So let's see what we have here. So we have one coming out this way, one out the front, and then one out the back. Alright, so that will be how I attach my pine cone onto my circle base here. And then I also want to have a string on the top of my pine cone so that I can hang it wherever I'm planning to hang it. So I'm going to wrap it around the top scales there. Got that. Now the little bit trickier part just takes some patience and some you know, trying and failing. So what you're going to do is you're just going to start tying your strings onto your frame here. And when I first did this, I did kind of like a little half knot that's easy to untie if I needed to make any adjustments to my piece here. So to show you that, you just go around and through like that, and you have a tail here. And when you go around again and come through your loop, what you're going to do is you're only going to come part way through your loop and pull it taut like that. And see this little tail here? That little tail allows you to untie this very easily if you want to change the length of your string after you get all your pieces tied together. Okay, so now I can pick this up and you can see that it's a little bit lopsided, isn't it? So that's why I left these little kind of like half hitches here so that I can undo them and kind of adjust it. So this is part of where the fun comes in. You get to look and you get to experiment. Well, what if I let out some here and made it a little longer? Or what if I, you know, pulled some in here? What would happen? So this is where you get to kind of do some of that trial and error. And it's okay that it's not coming out, you know, perfect. It gives me an opportunity to go back and see how I can improve what I've done. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can untie this side and kind of tighten it up a bit, and maybe that will bring it more level. Let's see what happens. Okay. So that helped a little bit. It's a little bit better. Let's see. What else can we do here? Maybe if I let a little bit out there, let it hang a little bit more. And sometimes it's not going to be quite perfect because we don't have a perfect circle. And that's okay too, you know. Okay. All right. That's looking pretty good. A little bit more level. Okay, so now that we have our base, we need to go ahead and start putting on some pine cones. So if you take a look, there are sections of vine between each piece of yarn here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections here, and I chose to go ahead and put 8 pine cones on my mobile. So what I did was I started, you know, an inch or so from the first piece of yarn, and then once I had the first one tied on, then I basically decided that I was going to put 2 pieces of yarn and 2 pine cones per section of the mobile here. So the second one would go about an inch from this string and hang down. So just to show you one of those, go ahead and get a string. Alright, so if I'm looking at the top of my pine cone here, I'm just going to go around the very middle section and then these 2 that are in line with the middle section. So if I wrap my string around those 3, when I'm done making my knots, it will hang down pretty straight and spin straight as well. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so now I'm ready to go ahead and put it on my mobile. Okay, so I'm just going to pick a spot about an inch from this string. Now I'm starting to have some problems with being able to work in this space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hang this onto the shepherd's hook and work from the shepherd's hook. Okay, so now that I have it hanging up, it's a lot easier for me to see what I'm working with. And if you once again, if you don't have a shepherd's hook, you can hang it on a tree, or maybe you have a rack in the house that you could hang it from. Anywhere that's going to let it hang down and let you see what you're working with will help. So I've got my first pine cone here, and I just picked a length. You could make it a little shorter if you want, or you can make it a little longer. I wouldn't go too much longer than this for the first one, because you're going to need to increase the length of your strings each consecutive pine cone, so you might, end up with a really long string for your last pine cone. All right, so I've got my string here, so I'm going to line it up. Remember I said I was going to put 2 pine cones per segment of my circle here. I've got 1 already, and so I'm going to go ahead and match it up and give myself a little extra room up top here for when I tie my knots. And then I'm going to measure, and you want your next one to be a little bit below your first one. So if you go a little too long, you can always cut or tie a little more if it's a little too long. All right, so here's my next pine cone. So I need to go ahead and tie that up. Now I'm ready, and I'm going to put it about an inch, a little bit more from this string hanging down here. Okay, so that's a little bit further down from this pine cone. So I like the way that looks, so I'm just going to tie it off here. And I'm just going to do an extra little couple of knots here so that it doesn't come undone. All right, so the next one would start in this section of string here, about right here, and you can space it out however you'd like, whatever looks good to you.